In this video we'll be talking about the dismantling and overhauling of a Walters & Dobson two-stage foot pump. Here's an example of the pump. It's the military issue version with the cover plate to protect the brass barrel and holes in the base to put it on a stabilising board. Walters & Dobson also made a non-military version of this pump which didn't have the protective plate on. I'll be stripping down the pump to show you how to overhaul it. If you wanted to do a full strip down of the pump, one needs to take out the back axle here, which is screwed in, the front lower axle, which is held in with split pins and washers, and the top upper axle, which is also held in with split pins and washers. I won't be taking it completely apart in this video, so I won't be doing the two bottom axles, but in able to get out the pumping unit and to look inside it, I'll simply be taking out the top front axle. So here we have the pump after we've taken the top front axle out, and you can see that the foot pedal and foot pedal arms are sprung forward under the influence of the spring, and we have the pump body, the whole pumping unit now exposed. If one were to want to replace a spring, for example, one needs to get this front axle out, which is held in with split pins and washers. If one wants to get the whole pumping unit out of the pump, one needs to unscrew this back axle here, but we won't be doing that. I'll be simply dismantling the pumping unit as we see it here and looking inside it and discussing how to overhaul it and re-washer it. The first job we have to do to dismantle the pumping unit is to undo this bolt at the back. Unscrewing the central nut at the back and removing the barrel end cap by unscrewing that as well allows the insides of the pump to be withdrawn from the stage 1 barrel. Here we see the insides of the pump after withdrawal from the barrel, and there are two important points to note here with regard to maintenance and the working of the pump. First, just behind the hexagonal nut on the end of the thin hollow piston rod is a fibre washer for sealing, and that needs to be in good condition to allow sealing of that hexagonal nut when it goes back into the stage 1 barrel and the nut is tightened up. So if in doubt, replace that fibre washer. Also a thin leather washer would work. The second point to note here is that the thin hollow piston rod has a small air hole in the end of it, and this is to allow the stage 1 compressed air, which is compressed when the large stage 1 piston descends in the barrel on the downstroke. This hole allows that air to pass into the hollow piston rod, through the gland box and into the stage 2 compression chamber, ready for the stage 2 compression. It's important when overhauling the pump to check that that air hole at that point is free and not blocked in any way. Blowing through it from both ends will ensure that, and just checking that there's nothing in there to block the flow of air. So with those words, we'll now move on to taking off the stage 1 piston head and examining the workings of the stage 2 compression. After unscrewing the stage 1 piston head and gland box housing, which you see here, one can remove the stage 1 cup washer, which you see removed here. It just sits on that threaded spigot. The first maintenance point to note is that if this cup washer is in any way damaged or split or torn, it should be replaced. It's a very important part of the whole pumping mechanism. Just moving back, we see also we've withdrawn the stage 2 piston head and cup washer from the inside of the stage 2 compression chamber, and it's very important from a maintenance viewpoint and to overhaul it to make sure that this cup washer is sound and in good condition and replaced if necessary. We mentioned in the previous video of a small air hole which lets in the stage 1 compressed air, and here we see the small hole in the piston rod which is behind the stage 2 piston head, and this is where the stage 1 air exits into the stage 2 chamber. So it exits through that hole and fills the space behind the stage 2 piston head on the downstroke. So it's charging the stage 2 compression chamber ready for the stage 2 compression. So those are the main points from an operational and a maintenance viewpoint on the pump when you've taken the insides of the stage 2 compression chamber out. And we'll now dismantle a couple of other parts just to show you more detail so you fully understand how it works and what needs doing in an overhaul. Here we have the stage 2 compression components fully dismantled so we can discuss what they are and what's needed in maintenance. First of all, the stage 1 piston head here contains a gland box. This means that the gland box needs packing so that when the thin piston rod passes through it, no air can escape along the edge of the piston rod. Normally, when this pump was new, the gland box packing was done with a small single top hat washer, but these are no longer available. So one of the easiest approaches is to use, say, 4 soft leather polo mint washers, which I show here, slid onto the thin piston rod, topped off with a single flat leather washer. And when these are packed into the gland box, well oiled, and the gland box cap is screwed back on tightly, that gives a very satisfactory seal, so no air can pass along the piston rod between the 2 chambers. If one wanted an alternative approach, one can use nitrile rubber O-rings to do the packing. One needs to get ones of the right internal and external diameters, and these are equally satisfactory, but perhaps the easiest thing to do is to use thin, soft leather polo mint washers as shown here. Moving along the piston rod to the stage 2 piston head, we notice a very important feature, that there is a ball bearing housed within the piston rod just upstream of the exit hole, and it's held in place with a soft retaining spring. This ball bearing, 4.7mm diameter, is there to allow air out of that small hole in the piston rod on the downstroke, but block return flow so that no air from the tyre gets in and blocks it. The stage 2 piston backplate screws on to the end of the piston rod, as you see there, followed by the stage 2 cup washer. This must of course be in good condition with no tears or no rips, and must be replaced if found to be defective. The final thing, the stage 2 piston head screws down tightly against that piston backplate to pinch the stage 2 washer. From a maintenance and overhaul viewpoint, apart from the washer, one should check that the ball bearing forming the non-return valve is clean and not pitted. If it's pitted at all, one can replace it with a brand new one, and that's often the best approach. The small soft retaining spring is usually undamaged. If one does need to find a replacement, one can get a suitable piece of spring from taking apart one of those spring-loaded ballpoint pens one sees on the market and cutting it to the right length. That spring is not there to force the ball bearing into the aperture, it's there just to hold it in place. The return air pressure forces the ball bearing against the aperture inside the piston rod to prevent any backflow. So there you have it, the main operational and maintenance aspects to take into account in the stage 2 compression chamber. Some final things to note from an operational and an overhaul viewpoint are shown here. First of all, just behind the stage 1 piston head is a leather impact washer. This is simply there to cushion the impact between the piston head and the screwed barrel end cap at the top of the upstroke. That can easily be made from a piece of flat leather, and it has no pneumatic purpose, simply to cushion the impact. If we move to the exit of the pump, we'll see two very important features which are important both from a maintenance and from an operational viewpoint. First of all, at the top we see a pressure test valve. I've taken this out of the pump housing, and you see it's a small peg with rubber seals on it with a small spring behind it. This screws in to the outlet, and the rubber seals on the peg seal, but when one applies a pressure test implement, you press in, it presses in the small peg, lets air out, and allows the pressure to be taken with a handheld pressure gauge. The second point is that there is a non-return valve at the exit. That's a second non-return valve, so the pump has two, one internally and one at the exit. This is a standard non-return valve, a ball bearing, same dimensions as the previous one, small soft spring, and in this case a screwed bung which screws in to keep the spring and the ball bearing in place. This is important to prevent backflow and to make pumping easy. So those are the most important things to take note of at the exit of the pump, and overhaul or replace as appropriate. I hope this video has given you a good idea about how to dismantle and overhaul a Walters and Dobson 2-stage foot pump. If you wanted more information about re-washering the pump, if you click on the link saying "and one more link" on this YouTube channel, you'll be able to download this document, which is a detailed description of how to re-washer the pump. It's several pages long with illustrated instructions. If you wanted a set of washers and seals making for you, don't hesitate to get in touch.